Welcome, everyone, to Castle Air Museum. It's a lovely day to be out with airplanes. Beautiful day. I'm Major General Clay Garrison, USAF retired, current chairman of the board. I'd like to welcome you all to this ceremony in which we are going to dedicate a memorial to Lieutenant Colonel Cliff James, a man who was instrumental in founding the museum, longtime board member, multiple term chairman of the board. So this is a big day because a lot of what you see here is a direct result of all of his work and his effort. To get the ceremony started, I would like the Cadet Corps from Mitchell Senior Elementary School to present the colors.
And honor guard, hoist the colors. Keep going, fast. Faster, faster. Keep going. Tie it off.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? Thank you.
Another hand for Jordan there. And also a hand for our Cadet Corps from Mitchell Senior Elementary School. Thank you for being here. And the flyby that we just saw was by the Flying Tiger Squadron out of Torrance, California. And Cliff's son Brent is in the back seat of the lead airplane. Those are all of his friends. They were here last night. And right now they're circling around, and is customary at ceremonies remembering military aviators that it is customary to do a missing man formation. So in this case, they're circling around behind us, and they're going to come back around, and they're going to give us a missing man formation. They are a 15 airplane squadron out of Torrance. They all fly Nanchings. It's basically a Chinese training aircraft. It's still the primary training aircraft for the Chinese Air Force today. They have them shipped over in containers. They put on German motors, or I should say they put on Russian motors, German propellers, American avionics, and they fly them as experimental aircraft around the United States, and they're still brand new out of the box. So they're going to come back here. They're about 60 seconds out from their second TOT to give a missing man, and that is why we started promptly on time today, so that we would be here for them, because they're going to be leaving this ceremony and going down south and participating in another ceremony in Santa Ynez later this afternoon. So I will stop talking and let you enjoy these gentlemen who've graciously given their time and resources to provide us with a missing man formation in remembrance of Cliff. Hey, Brent, you can, or Chet, you can pass on that they did a very nice job. Thank you. The timing was perfect. All right, now I would like to introduce some of our dignitaries that are with us today. Representing Congressman John Duarte's office, we have Christian Santos. So, also here are members of Cliff's family. Son Brent is up in the air. Son Chet, right there. He was the ground forward air controller for today. And his wife, Judy. There we go. Cliff's first wife, Laurel, right here. Mother of his 5 children. Daughter, Melanie Cole. Her husband, Jeff. Granddaughter, Katie. Her husband, Justin. And 2 great-grandchildren, Remington and Ruger, right here. All right, we'd like to begin with Representative Christian, if you would come up and read and present the proclamation from Congressman Duarte's office.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Christian Santos. I'm actually here with a congressional certificate from Congressman John Duarte, who represents California's 13th Congressional District, which includes all of Merced County. And it's such an honor to be a part of this ceremony. I've actually got a father myself who served in Operation Desert Storm. He was in the Navy, though, but I can tell you there are definitely a couple occasions in his stories where he was extremely happy to have those flyboys over him in the Persian Gulf. So, without further ado, on behalf of Congressman John Duarte, I'd like to present this congressional certificate honoring Lieutenant Colonel Cliff James, founder of Castle Air Museum and Mr. Museum, for the Cliff James Memorial dedication posthumously. This is a man that had a vision and turned into a reality to give the community and people all over the world the opportunity to see some of this incredible, awesome military hardware and feats of American and international aviation engineering. So we're so honored to be a part of this ceremony. We're so honored to be joined by members of his family, and we're so honored to be joined by so many that have given and sacrificed so much of their lives to serve this nation. So thank you for letting us be a part of this today.
Thank you, Christian. And now, if we could have Arturo Martinez from Senator Caballero's office.
Well, when I was driving, I saw that flyover and it got me a little emotional. Not gonna lie, Mark was in the military. He's in the Marines, and we always talk about his military stuff that we can, some stuff. He's like, I cannot tell you that, my boy. And I'm like, all right, cool, But on behalf of today, I'm here on behalf of Senator Ana Caballero to present the certificate in honor of Lieutenant Colonel Cliff James and his many years of dedication to developing and supporting Castle Air Museum. Today, there are aircraft on display representing the men and women who served our country in all branches of military. Our community is forever grateful to Mr. Museum for his 32 years of service to our country, 42 years as a volunteer, and for completing the mission. Presented on June 24, 2023, on behalf of Senator Ana Caballero. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Now I would like to introduce General Astorino. Would you please come up?
Thank you.
Like this? Thank you. Okay. Obviously, I'm not used to public speaking. I first met Cliff back in 1975 when we were both stationed in the 5th Bomb Wing up at Minot, North Dakota. We never did figure out what we did wrong to get that assignment, but the hell, we were both there. He was the 5th OMS Squadron Commander, Organizational Maintenance Squadron Commander, and I was assigned to the 23rd Bomb Squadron. And I don't know how many of you are military, and you know ops and maintenance generally do not have the best relationship when blame is to be blamed. We both point the finger at one another, but I can honestly tell you that in my time in ops and his in maintenance, we got along very, very well. You could always count on Cliff to have his maintenance guys out on the ramp preparing the aircraft for the arrival of the bomb crew that was going to fly it that day. Cliff never spent time in his office. He was always out on the ramp monitoring activity. And on one such day, Cliff was out there when the crew chief, who was preparing a B-52 for a flight crew to arrive, ran over to Cliff and flagged him down. Cliff was driving a maintenance truck called Bomber 1. And he stopped Cliff and he told him, he said, I think there is a homemade bomb in the wheel well of the B-52 that I'm pre-flighting. And Cliff immediately did everything that was appropriate. He cordoned off the aircraft, got everybody out of the immediate area, called the security police and told them to send out a bomb dog. He called the base commander, whose job it was to be the on-scene commander for such events. Got everything set up. In the meantime, all of us in operations, we then went to the command post to monitor the situation from a well-bunkered room. So the first thing the wing commander said, he calls Bomber 1, he said, what do we got going out there? And Cliff said, the bomb dog is here with the handler and they're patrolling around the aircraft. Okay, Bomber 1, keep me advised. Shortly thereafter, Cliff comes back on the phone and he said, I have an update. What do you got? He said, the bomb dog is briefing the base commander and telling him what he found. And the wing commander just looked around the room and he just said, did I hear that right? So we waited a few minutes and then the wing commander said, Bomber 1, when the dog is through briefing the base commander, would you be kind enough to relay to us what he said? And then there was a pause and Cliff said, sorry about that, it was the bomb dog handler that is briefing the base commander. And don't worry, it is not a bomb. We discovered it's a piece of equipment that was left behind by a maintenance person who was trying to fix a problem within the wheel well. It's not a bomb, and immediately the cordoned off area was taken down. People returned their day, but we had a 2 or 3 day laugh. And every time I saw Cliff, he would raise his eyebrow as much as say, not now, not now. Well, a couple of years later, I was transferred to the Castle Air Force Base, and a year later, Cliff arrives down here as well. And the first thing I wanted to do was welcome him. So he was going to take over as the supervisor of maintenance. And I went down to his office to meet him. And I said, Cliff, welcome. Is there anything I can do upon your arrival to help you? And he looked me in the eye like only Cliff could. And he said, I don't want to hear one story about a bomb dog. I said, Cliff, your joke, your secret is safe with me. But at that time, the man named General Jim McCarthy was the wing commander, and he had visions of what you see here, and he coordinated with different people in the Air Force and the Air Force Museum and 15th Air Force to establish a museum here at Castle Air Force Base. First aircraft arrived, B-25s, B-17s, and the first person on scene to help him was our friend Cliff James. And the work that had to be done was insurmountable at the time. We had to figure out sighting of the aircraft, how are we going to display them, water had to be put in, electricity, it just went on and on and on. Well, at the time that Cliff was out here, everything he did was coming to fruition, and it was completed timely and done well. The museum you see back here with the indoor museum, that was a dormitory on the base that was no longer being used and was transported over here. And Cliff, with his volunteers, restored and refurbished that and made it the indoor museum with offices upstairs. The next project was the banquet room, the gift shop. All of that was done. Concrete was poured, parking lot put in, again, all through Cliff. And it went on and on. I left here, and then I came back in a retired mode in 1990. And at this time, it was Cliff that was going to welcome me. He met me and he said, listen, I've got to show you what we got out at the museum. You were here at the beginning, let's show you what we got now. 10 years had passed. I couldn't believe what I saw when we got out here. Paths, sighting of aircraft, the number of aircraft, drove around, and I noticed they had porta potties out there. And I said something about, oh, you've got the porta potties like they use for the farmhands when they're doing the fields. Yes, but hopefully we'll get rid of that one day. And shortly thereafter, we were informed by the Livingston Farmers Market that they were shutting down their operation up there off of Highway 99, and they had an outdoor restroom that they wanted to get rid of. If we would go up there and pick it up and take it off their site, they would donate it to us free of charge. Well, Cliff got a hold of a fellow in town by the name of Bert Johnson. He had a flat truck, a couple of forklifts. Cliff went up there and measured the trailer, found out it was certainly serviceable, came back, poured the concrete footings for the trailer where it's going to be located, next to the B-57, went up there with the flatbed truck, 2 forklifts, lifted up, put it on a forklift, put it on a flatbed rather, and because it was a wide load, we couldn't come back on 99, we had to take an alternate route, which he did. He got it back here, lifted it off the flatbed, put it on the foundation, fit perfectly. Only thing we needed was utilities. Cliff and his band of volunteers dug a trench to the nearest water supply, which was a fountain. Next, they dug a trench to put in electricity, called PG&E, had them sink a utility pole in next to the museum, run the wires down, hooked it to the side of the restroom, and we had electricity. The only thing lacking was sewer. And the option was a septic tank, but Cliff was not keen on that at all. So he got a hold of a gentleman by the name of Vernon Lustig, who was the owner of Sand and Gravel, Cressy Sand and Gravel, brought out his heavy equipment, and they trenched from the back of the trailer under the perimeter fence of the museum, under the fence, retrenched from the other side of the fence, across an asphalt road. And how he ever got permission to do this, if he ever got permission, I'll never know, but hooked into the sewer system of the Castle Hospital. The next thing we know, it's working. We backfilled everything, put new blacktop on the thing. We are now in business. We set forms, poured concrete, sidewalk, entryway, railings, fixed the roof of at the restroom, painted the inside, repaired anything that needed inside, faucets, toilets, whatever, painted the outside. And somebody said, you know what we ought to do? We ought to hang a sign right over it, call it the Cliff House. Kind of like the restaurant up in San Francisco. Cliff would have no part of that. Like you said earlier, something like this, not Cliff's idea. He wanted to do things in the shade. In the 46 years that I knew Cliff James, I have many fond memories, both on active duty and as a volunteer out here. I can remember fishing off of his houseboat up in Lake McClure. I can remember our time together working on projects here. Even Friday night at the Elks, a beer, dinner. It was always nice to be with him. But the one memory that I will treasure the most is the fact that Cliff was my friend for 46 years. He will be missed. I think this is a beautiful monument. I know they're going to display it soon, but I know that at this location, every visitor in the future that comes out of that building to tour this wonderful display of airplanes, they're going to see that, they're going to read the plaque, and they're going to know who Mr. Museum is. I want to thank you all for your attendance, and I hope it turns out to be a beautiful day for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen Rostorino. Those were excellent words. It's nice to hear stories about Cliff, because I knew him for just a relatively short time. I've only been here for about 2 years, so 3 years. So now, I would like the committee chairperson. Things like this don't just happen. There's people, volunteers, in an organization like this, it takes volunteers to do everything, because that's how this works, right? This whole operation is run by volunteers and donations and whatever revenue we can generate by people coming into the gate. We are fortunate to have individuals like Larry McFarland who are able to take on projects like this and see them through to completion. So Larry, if you'll come up now.
Well, good morning, and I want to add my welcome to all of you for coming out this morning and for this celebration and dedication. I probably knew Cliff for less time than most of you. I departed Castle as an instructor pilot about the same time that Cliff arrived. So I went on to serve in the airlines for 26 years and then retired. We maintained our home here in Merced, and so I hadn't been out this way in a long time, and I drove by here, and here's all these airplanes and everything, and so I decided that I would pull in and see what's happening here. So I then, this organization is always looking for volunteers, and I got the rope wrapped around me real quick. So, but anyway, this is where I first met Cliff James. So I'll go back a little bit. One of the things that I share is that Cliff and I both served in Vietnam, and we both flew the C-123. We were there years apart, but doing much the same thing. Excuse me. And then both of us flew as instructors and flew the KC-135 aircraft. And so I soon was roped into becoming an assistant crew chief on our 123, along with Cliff as being my supervisor. And from there, we progressed to today. After Cliff's passing, the board of directors decided that there needed to be a memorial built for Cliff. And the memorial committee was formed, consisting of Barbara Williams, Joe Pruso, Al Osborne, and myself, and I was to be drafted to become the chairman of the committee. A memorial fund was established, and that raised about $14,000 to $15,000 from members of the museum and other places. And that's what we started with. So the first thing we had to do was decide where are we going to have the memorial. And if you all are familiar with the old flagpole that used to be here, that was a 2-inch rusted piece of pipe for a flagpole, and surrounded by rose bushes that were probably 20 or 30 years old, and a few other things, that site was selected. And so then we we started work from there. Then, while we're doing all this, COVID arrived on the scene, and the museum was actually closed for a short period of time. And it was during that we lost Barbara Williams. So that left 3 of us on the committee. So I don't want to go into a whole lot of detail and take a whole lot of time, but the old flagpole and the rose bushes were removed. A design for the memorial was completed. Piece by piece, various elements of the memorial were acquired. And then, I say kind of like a gift from heaven, a gentleman who is a contractor stepped in, and Emilio Drummond is just, he's the backbone of this whole thing. He had all the knowledge and all of the tools and everything to proceed with this. And along with Greg Ramirez and from VC1, the 2 of them created this beautiful concrete memorial here. And so I want to say, thank you to them. I want to say thank you for everyone here today and for your contributions and being a part of Castle Air Museum. Emilio and Greg, please stand up. As I said, without their help, and this would have been impossible.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the work that you've done. This is beautiful. And we're about now to get to the final part of it where we get to see what the committee has put together. So if I could have the family members come forward. All right. If we could have someone on each side, we're going to have to pull this thing off like the top of a sack. And straight up. And we have our cameras ready. All right, 3, 2, 1. That is amazing. So obviously you all see it when you come up here, but there's a bronze there with a cliff in relief, and on the front of the plaque is a relief of every airplane that he flew, the C-123, the KC-97, the KC-135. That is beautiful. And then obviously Chet and Melanie and Remington were the ones that pulled everything off. So I understand that, Melanie, you have some words?
Oh wow, it's really beautiful. I can't wait for you to come up and see it. I told Jeff he had to stand next to me because I wouldn't know if I would be able to get through this. But to all of those who helped to make this memorial possible, I want to sincerely thank you. And a very special thank you to Larry McFarland. Larry has been so helpful. He has worked so hard, and I appreciate all that he and his wife Marion have done since my dad's passing. Thank you guys so much. Whether you called him Dad or Grandpa or Cliff or Clifford, you knew he loved God, his family, and this country. And of course, he loved this museum. After his retirement, whenever I would ask my mom, "Hey, where's Dad?" she would either say, "He's at the museum," or "He's at the houseboat." She would say, "He's got a bed at the houseboat, but I think he needs one at the museum too." It amazes me the stories and memories that people continue to share with me regarding my dad. Just yesterday, a friend of mine was talking to someone at the lake, and his name came up. Of course, it was regarding a prank that he had played on someone, because he had a great sense of humor, and he loved to make people laugh, especially his grandchildren. He also loved to fix things, as we all know, and he was known as Mr. Museum or Mr. Fix-It. He was so good at fixing anything. When he would visit family or friends, he was the happiest if they had a list of things that he could fix while he was there visiting. He enjoyed serving people and especially his country. He poured his heart into this museum, and he spent many, many hours fixing things here. He was blessed with many gifts, and as I stated, he loved the Lord and he loved this country. So these are some Bible verses I'd like to share with you that remind me of my dad. So from Ephesians 4, verses 1 and 2. As a prisoner for the Lord, then, I urge you to live a life worthy of the calling you have received. Be completely humble and gentle. Be patient, bearing with one another in love. And that was my dad. I loved my father very much. I love him very much, and I know he loved me. He would not like all of this attention. But as his daughter, I would like to say that my family and I are truly grateful. Thank you for recognizing him and remembering what an amazing man he was. Thank you.
All right. So we've reached that point of the ceremony where we're about to finish up. Before we finish, I would like to thank the mayor of Merced, Matt Serrato, for showing as well. Thank you very much. So as we adjourn, I want to invite you to come up and look at the memorial. It's beautiful. And then after you have a look-see, please go into the banquet room where we have some refreshments waiting, a little light lunch. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for being here. Appreciate all the volunteers. Have a good day. And one more thing, as usual. What's going on?
When you go into the gift or the banquet room, we have a video set up in the corner, and it is Cliff live in his own words. One of the docents interviewed him 1980 something, but it's going to be on the screen there. Thanks to Scott Phillips for putting it all. It's going to be going on a loop. It's about a 30-minute video, but stop by and visit Cliff there.
All right, thank you. Good day.
Oh, you bet, Chet. Thank you so much. Very nice guys. Remember, you got in one of the planes you're on. Ah!
Jewel.
Yeah.
Today is April 14th, 2005. My name is Dale Griffin. I'm the curator at Castle Air Museum, and we're in the Baker Memorial Library here at the museum. And today we are privileged to have with us Clifford A. James, and he is going to share his experiences with us. Good morning, Cliff.
Good morning, sweetheart.
Would you please tell us what year you were born?
I was born on 18th July, 1932,
And where?
Seattle, Washington.
Okay. And can you tell us what your father did?
Dad ran our grandfather's plumbing shop, Edwin James Plumbing in Seattle, one of the largest plumbing shops at the time, and he was the manager of the shop. And he was an All-American basketball player, the first one from the University of Washington.
Oh. What did your mother do?
She was a housewife. She took care of my sister and I.
So there were just the two of you?
Yes,
What
my
was
sister,
your sister's name?
Shirley James.
Okay. And where did you go to school?
I attended the school in Seattle, and then in 1942 we moved to a farm out in Woodinville, Washington, and attended Bothell High School, and then I attended the University of Washington.
And what did you take at the university?
Aeronautical engineering at the time. That was short-lived.
Why?
Huh? I was just getting out of high school. I don't think I was ready yet.
Oh, okay. And
then I enlisted in the Air Force.
You enlisted. Okay.
I enlisted in the Air Force in 1952, the 13th of May, and went to basic training at Parks Air Force Base in California. That was 3 months, and while at basic, I took the aviation cadet test, and somehow passed the test, and became a pre-cadet, and then was assigned to Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma. The pre-cadets were there, and my job at Enid, Oklahoma was a crew chief on a T-6. And then on the 1953, we entered aviation cadet training. I went to Lackland Air Force Base, where we had 3 months of officers training, they called it. I call it harassment, but it was training. And from Lackland, I went to Goodfellow Air Force Base, and was at Goodfellow at the primary training for 6 months, 1953 of May until October. And from there, we went to Vance Air Force Base in Enid, Oklahoma. And that's where I flew T-28s and B-25. That was the basic training for the pilots, the multi-engine training. It was difficult getting multi-engine because everybody wanted fighters. And, so academically, if you're in the right place, you're able to go for your choice. And mine was B-50, B-25. After pilot training, I was awarded my wings on the 13th of April and second lieutenant. And then I went to Mesa Air Force Base in Sacramento, California, where they called it advanced multi-engine training, flying T-29s. Did that for 3 months, and then in July of 1954, I was stationed at March Air Force Base, California. I had 30 days leave between the T-29 and at Sacramento and going to Riverside, California at March. I was married, and then went to the 22nd Air Refueling Squadron at March Air Force Base. I was stationed there until 1957, was an aircraft commander, and in 1957, the 13th of April, I was discharged. I wasn't happy. I had a crew, lost a crew, had a crew. So I got out of the service, went back to the University of Washington, had a plumbing shop. So I worked a half a day at the plumbing shop on weekends, and then school until 3 o'clock in the morning. And about 2 years of that sort of got to me. My best friend sent me a note that the Air Force is recalling officers. You can volunteer to come back to active duty. And that wasn't my salvation, I guess. I said, sure, I came back. So January 1959, I came back on active duty. Came right back to the 22nd Air Refueling Squadron at March Air Force Base and started over again. And in 6 months, I was aircraft commander again. And in 1960, the whole squadron converted to the KC-135. So in mass, we went through Castle Air Force Base, Combat Crew Training Squadron, and I came through in June, July, and August, and had to go as a co-pilot because I was a junior aircraft commander and wanted to get back to the Seattle area, and we went to McChord Air Force Base, Tacoma, Washington. I was at Tacoma, Washington, at McChord for 2 years. We sort of tore the runway up, and they said that's enough. So then we went to, we all moved to Mesa, Travis, or Beale, and I was fortunate enough to come back to Mesa Air Force Base in 1962, and there I was a aircraft commander, instructor pilot, stand-of pilot, and I led the first B-52 mission, KC-135 mission that went into Vietnam with the Strategic Air Command called ArcLight. two B-52s from the 320th Bomb Wing, and a very good friend. I led about 27 of those missions, and then for some reason I was picked to go to MacDill Air Force Base, Tampa, Florida, and fly the Commander-in-Chief of the Strike Command at MacDill. He was a 4-star general. So I was transferred to the Strike Command in 1966, was his pilot until 1970, and we flew worldwide missions, and his area of responsibility was in the ASA area, the Middle East, Africa. Today they call it the Continental Command. Same thing, they still control Iraq and what have you. But it was a very interesting mission, sort of similar to the SAM outfit at Andrews, the Air Force One type mission. It was a great responsibility and a very wonderful career flying the general. From there, I attended the Armed Forces Staff College at Norfolk, Virginia, and that was from August to January 1971. And then in January of 1971, I went through combat crew training at Lockbourne, Ohio, in the C-123. So now I'm going from 4-engine jets at 40,000 feet to a C-123 that we're going to fly at 200 feet. And it was a special operation. I was sent to Vietnam, flying a UC 123. It's a special aircraft that had a lot of equipment on it for ECM type gear, and the crew was all Chinese. And after my tour, I was awarded Chinese wing, and it was very interesting year at the training. From there, I went to the Pentagon, 1971 December to 1975. At the Pentagon, I was the chief of prioritizing the aircraft modifications, Class 5 mods, which was a new and improved capability to the Air Force aircraft, and ran the priorities review group. I was the chairman of that. It was an outstanding job. I was closely related to aircraft, which made me happy. So many jobs in the Pentagon are sort of isolated from what you'd like to do. And the 4 years there was very enjoyable, and I liked the tour very much. From there, I went to Minot, North Dakota. I was remarried in 1975 while I was a single at the Pentagon. My first wife had enough of the Air Force and being gone. I was gone all the time, so that was one of those challenges you meet in the military. I was remarried in 1975. We took her and her family to Minot, North Dakota. It was a challenge for all of us, the children, my wife, myself, but it was beautiful. We loved North Dakota, the people, and the mission. I went into maintenance. I went temporary duty to maintenance because what do you do with a lieutenant colonel that's outranks everybody else that are squadron commanders? So they said, well, we'll send you to maintenance. In 2 weeks, I picked up a squadron, 5th OMS maintenance squadron. Challenging job, highest AWOL rate. Not only in SAC, next to Biloxi, Mississippi, it was second in the Air Force with AWOL. Loved the challenge, loved the job, and I can't say enough about it. And I was there from January 1976 till May 1979 when I was transferred to Castle Air Force Base. And at Castle again, I was in maintenance, the maintenance control officer. I ran all the maintenance scheduling, and at Castle, I went with the most sorties per month and almost all those other SAC squadrons put together. Commanding job, it was great. I loved every second of it. And I used to go out and work with the troops on their aircraft. One day I was out there helping the hydraulic man. Of course, I'm in my blue uniform. I always wore it out there. And up in the wheel well, fixing the line, and the fitting broke. And needless to say, we all came out. And again, I get home and my wife says, there goes another uniform, right? Oh, I guess so. So workplace uniforms quite readily in my job, but I loved every second. I loved working with the troops. I retired as a lieutenant colonel, maintenance control officer in 1st of February 1984. And I had 29 years, 11 months of active duty, and 31 years and 8 months was total duty. I enjoyed every second. When I retired, you never know how you did your job or what you accomplished on active duty. You don't hear it a lot. And maintenance probably was the most rewarding job I've ever had. When I retired, the chiefs group came and put a flag in my front yard. And we had a ceremony on the flight line where the troops marched by. All the chiefs in the wing stood on the wing of the B-52. Impressive. And then they had a retirement night for me at the NCO club, and then one at the officers club. At the NCO club, they ran out of seats. The young enlisted people, the first time they ever seen us, wanted to attend, and that does something for you when the young people that we hardly ever get out to any function that can hardly afford it. But come out, and I finally figured I must have done something right. It was a great moment in my life. I loved the Air Force. After my retirement, I went to work at the Castle Air Museum. I've been at the Castle Air Museum since the day Chief Morrison came into my office and said, "Colonel, we're going to have an air museum here at Castle." And of course my comment was, "An air museum? Yeah, you know, old airplanes." I said, "We have 62 sitting out there now," referring to the B-52 and 135. And remember, this is 1979. Those same airplanes are flying today. But that was the start of the museum. And I assisted in the renovation of the first aircraft that came in, the B-17, B-25, the B-29 particularly, which had to be put together. We picked up at China Lake. And the aircraft that followed on, I was responsible for getting them refurbished, towed out to the museum. And in between times, the Flight of Fancy building was only 1/3 of the way completed. I spent 4.5 years driving nails, insulating the buildings, wiring the buildings, putting plumbing in. These buildings were a complete shell. They were stripped of everything. 4.5 years, I got into the insulation, drywall, flooring, painting, you name it, I did it. Unfortunately, I'm a little perfectionist, and the volunteers worked about an hour or two. That was about enough for them. Anyhow, I loved every second of it. And at the same time, we were working on the B-47 down at China Lake Naval Weapons Center outside of Ridgecrest, California. There was 2 B-47s that were out in the Mojave Desert. We pulled one of them in from the desert. They've been out there for 21 years. Pulled it in 23 miles up to the ramp at the naval station. We spent 4 years getting the aircraft in condition to fly, and unfortunately we didn't get approval to fly it. I happened to be the fuel cell repairman for some reason. My buddy Chief Morrison says, "You're a fuel cell man." So I take orders from the chief and away we went. But it took 1 year to get confirmation and authority to fly the aircraft, and Strategic Air Command finally accepted the aircraft. I had to redo one of the fuel cells again. It took us 5 years to get the aircraft in, 44,000 man hours to do it. But my love is the Air Museum. I've been here since day one. Probably have over 14,000 to 15,000 hours in the museum, and love every second of it. Do you have any more questions of me? Oh, I'd like to tell you a little bit about my wife. I met my wife, Catherine Yvonne Perry, while I was stationed at the Pentagon. She lived in Alexander, Virginia. I lived in Alexander, Virginia. My wife lived in Alexandria, Louisiana. We met and went out together, sort of long-range telephone, and she came up quite often for 6 months. My father had a hard time understanding how I lived in Alexander, Virginia. She lived in Alexander, Virginia, and how this was going on. But we finally got him orientated. We were married in November 1975. So on our honeymoon, I took her to Minot, North Dakota. So she had 2 sons and a daughter. I accept them as my sons and daughter. I have 5 sons from the previous marriage, so I finally received a daughter from Proxate. She took my name, and so I was very gratified. Today at the museum, and otherwise, I have a houseboat up on Lake McClure in the foothills of Sierra. Dedicated work, keeping it afloat, having a great time. I love it. I love the museum. Any other questions?
Well, that was wonderful, Cliff. Of all the aircraft that you've flown, what has been your favorite?
All the aircraft? Well, really, I started out in the KC-97 at March Air Force Base. I failed to mention that. And transferred to the KC-135 in 1960. And the KC-135, everything doubled from the 97. Everything was twice as fast, twice as heavy, and both aircraft were great to fly. Going into Vietnam and flying low-level route in a 123, a twin-engine airplane, that was interesting. I became an instant instructor pilot in less than 20 hours. It takes you years to become an instructor pilot. But the 97 was the queen of the Air Force, and the 135 was just a dream to fly. It was great. Best job, aircraft maintenance.
Tell us about your ribbons that you're wearing.
Ribbons, well, I have 17 ribbons, 15 on display. I guess as you go through the service, the different areas you fly in, you work in and what have you, it's in the missions like in Vietnam, and I was in Vietnam off and on temporary duty from Mather Air Force Base, then of course an active duty at Nha Trang, but received the Distinguished Flying Cross, Meritorious Service Medal, Joint Service Medal for being stationed at MacDill Air Force Base, Strike Command, Combination Medal, Presidential Unit Citations for our missions in Vietnam for the 320th Bomb Wing, and so, yeah, 17 of them there.
Very good. Well earned. Is there anything else you would like to share? Special missions you went on that stick out in your mind, that kind of thing?
Well, special mission. The first mission of ArcLight was probably the most interesting mission that I had. I was a lead tanker with 32 aircraft. We were flying out of Okinawa on the first mission. The weather was lousy, bad. There was a tornado around the Philippines, and well, actually a typhoon around the Philippines, and the weather was extremely horrible. Dark, rainy. The winds were atrocious. We got the briefing and the winds. We went out to the aircraft for pre-flight, and during the pre-flight, start engines, the navigator mentioned to me, he said, the winds are 180 degrees out of phase. We're going to arrive at the orbit point 20 minutes early, which means the second cell behind us is going to arrive 20 minutes early, which means we're going to be overlapping KC-135 in 5 different orbit areas at the same time, the same altitude for over 20 minutes. And I said, say what? I got out of the seat. I'm sitting on the end of the runway. Got out of the seat, went back. He and the boom and I went over the flight plan, the winds and what have you. And I said, we can't handle that. Got back in the seat, called the command post. And in SAC, radio silence is paramount. You do not break radio silence. I thought this was well deserved, so I broke radio silence and told the command post to hold the second wave 22 minutes. Of course, the command post immediately went ballistic. Who said that? And he said, well, red lead said hold the second wave 22 minutes. And the reply was radio silence, radio silence. And by that time, I'm rolling down the runway. I turned them off. So, and all 32 tankers took off out of Kadena. The bombers were taken off out of Guam. 30 bombers took off out of Guam. They're all on time. It's just amazing operation. And I got down to the refueling area, and it was bad. The winds were like they forecasted, tailwinds. The bombers were arriving 20 minutes early. Of course, we compensated, but the second wave coming in was concerned about their timing, particularly on the bomber and the tankers. The tankers got to the orbit point, and all of us were at the orbit point at the same time for over 20 minutes, the same altitude. Being lead, I was in an outside orbit, and I had Brown lead, which led the second wave behind me. I offset him 25 miles to the south of me, so he was out of the way. The other 4 orbits had tankers flying through each other, and crews came back and said they could hear aircraft passing by in the orbit. It's a wonder we didn't lose the tanker, the majority of it, in that orbit, waiting for the bombers to come in. When the bombers did come in, I had my the Brown lead follow me as I went down track. I called him in, and so he got right to the orbit point as we left. Going down the refueling track, the B-52 was a good friend of mine, also from the 320th Bomb Wing, Bill Workman. I recognized his voice, and he was coming in, and we did not see the receiver until much less than a quarter of a mile. I would say something like 800 feet or so behind us when we finally saw the B-52. How we were refueled in this weather is just amazing. Everybody got refueled. Then as we're going down the track refueling, all of a sudden there was a lost aircraft report. And all kinds of commotion were coming over the intercom. The tanker, a bit on the tanker, but then Bill said, I asked Bill, I said, what's coming off from the bombers back there? And he said, well, there's a lost aircraft report, and we don't know if a bomber ran over a tanker, or a tanker ran over a bomber, or what happened. I said, okay. He said, well, I don't hear much on the tanker frequency. He said, well, ours is saturated. So we knew a lot was going on in the bomber frequency. The tanker frequency was pretty quiet. I instructed the 2 air spares to see if they could orbit and locate what's happened back there. And then I got out of range, and actually what happened, the weather scout that took off ahead of us, 1 hour ahead of us, he happened to be in the area and could see the light from the explosion of when the aircraft ran together. So a fellow by the name of Eric Helberg, our tanker pilot, he went to the area where he thought the collision occurred, and then he descended down to the top of the water, and he actually found 4 survivors down there. And he orchestrated the recovery and rescue of the people that survived the mid-air collision. And it happened to be a mid-air collision between two of our B-52. They were both 320th bombing crews, good friends, and the one bomber was way ahead of flight plan by over 20 minutes. They tried their little triangle, that was nowhere close. In last resort, you did what you're not supposed to do, you did a 360. When you did the 360, they had a mid-air collision. So that's one of those unfortunate things, and only 4 crew members survived that. And with the help of my friend Eric Hellberg, he had a Italian ship come by and start picking them up, and then the SA-16 came in and assisted. The SA-16 got on the ground, picked up 5 of them, 4 of the survivors. One happened to be already passed away. And then when it went to take off, it lost an engine because of the rough seas. And so then the Italian ship recovered the whole 9 yards, and then finally the U.S. Coast Guard ship came in and picked them off the ship. But that's probably the most hairy thing. I got on the ground and I couldn't believe it. The Air Force Inspector General came in and I asked about what happened on the mission, and I said I attempted to hold the takeoff of the tankers by 22 minutes. And when I found out that the people at Kadena had no control of the operation, I said, why do we have colonels here if they can't control the operation? I guess we really need captains. But anyway, it doesn't change much. Everything came out of JCS. Quite a ways away on a mission that you can't control from that distance. That's my opinion. I'm outspoken, but that's the way it goes. Too outspoken in the Pentagon, too, so I make a very permanent lieutenant colonel. But anyway, that's sort of my story there.
Well, thank you very much, Cliff. It's been a pleasure and a privilege to have this time with you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.